You are about to listen to A Touch of Happiness, written by Juan Moisés de la Serna, narrated by Ian A. Miller, and published by TekTime. Preface. Happiness for some is a state, for others it is the way, but when love arrives, all pain is gone. An intimate novel about people unknown to each other, with mixed feelings that converge into a common point, which is love. In life there are times when we have to decide what we want to do, what steps to follow. Easy it might not be. The environment is hostile, but if we strive, we can make it. Work is important. Daily efforts have to be done, pressing on so as to conquer. Nothing can stop the steps once you have decided to fight with all your strength. Your dream has been achieved. Love. Chapter 1, First Day. Part 1. I arrived in the city. I didn't really know why I was there in the first place, although I was sure there was something I had to do, because until this point, whenever I got to a place, it had been for somebody to find help through me, even though this person was not aware that I had been the channel used. I stayed in a motel in the suburbs, and took the first bus line I saw to visit the streets of that unknown city. When you hear about a new place for the first time, you find out information about the most significant and touristic places that can be visited. But the most important thing for me was to know the religious and hospital centres, where I could develop my purpose. With a guide in my hand, I paid attention to each street, in order to memorize which stops were interesting to me in that line, and so I did every time we dropped or took passengers to a destination on the map and looked for nearby buildings of my interest. I learnt that when one has little time, you have to make the most use of it to fulfill your mission. That is what I did, and for that reason I looked for those places where people of faith were gathered. That made it easier for me, so I didn't have to go looking for them house to house. I got off at the last bus stop. It was really a long journey back, but before catching the bus back to the motel, I wanted to walk a little and meet people, because in spite of living in a great country with its own idiosyncrasies, each city has its own style, and in this one each space has its own identity. It was a working-class neighborhood with the tenor of the large buildings that, as beehives, gave shelter to thousands of neighbors. The scarce green spaces around it and the lack of equipment for leisure activities gave a clear idea that its inhabitants were too busy in their constant daily job to be wasting their time sitting in a park to read a newspaper. I walked a little further, and I noticed the vehicles. These were somehow old, and, in spite of their careless appearance, it was because of their daily use. Certainly they were used to carry entire families, leaving each person at their place of work or study centre before ending up in some parking inside the buildings built exclusively to serve as parking lots. Whole tower buildings that were used daily by thousands of workers who knew that they would not find a free space to park on the street. I continued walking. I spotted by surprise that there was hardly any dirt in the streets. This was something I had already noticed in other cities in their working-class neighborhoods. The more humble the population was, the better taken care of were their common areas, as if they knew that no one was going to come and fix what they did not take care of themselves. I continued walking, and I found a small church in the middle of an open field. It was a tiny apartment in the shadow of two big buildings. I wanted to enter, but when I got closer I saw a sign on the door announcing the business days and hours, indicating that the rest of the time it remained closed. Going downstairs the entrance of the temple, ready to start my journey back to the motel, an elderly lady
Sample complete. Ready to continue?